Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Kim and today I'm going to be going over corn with you guys on how to plant it in and when to harvest your corn. So during this video you'll also get a few little handy tips and things that have gone wrong in my harvest and what I think was the problem. So to start out with, planting your corn in is probably the easiest thing to do, just like any other vegetable. Now I usually dig trenches about 1 inch to 2 inches deep and about a foot apart, or in my case, my size 8 size boot. I usually use that, and I just use a piece of string, or in my case I'm using baling twine between a couple of electric fence star pickets here to help me guide myself so that I can actually get a somewhat decent straight line. So it is really easy. You dig your trenches, you pop your corn seeds in, and I usually do them probably about 2 to 3 inches apart, and just pop them all in there, and then cover them up and water them in well and just let them do their thing. So the trenches are dug. I've stuck the seeds in. Now what I've done with the seeds in here this year is a little different to what I normally do. Normally I would just put in my corn seeds and be done with it. Oh, by the way, my remembrance of how many corn I put in here last year was way off. I just put 300 seeds into this 4x2.5, 4x3 section. You can get a lot of corn into a lot of spaces. So what I have put in here is some rock melon. This is a Hasselbest rock melon, and then I had some seeds I had saved from a rock melon I bought from the shop, so I've just sprinkled a good quantity of those three. Now the purpose of the rock melon going in here is to put a ground cover. It's not so much to get the rock melon. If I get some rock melon, that's a bonus, but it's going to be a ground cover in here to help keep the ground cooler over the summer months. So I'm not worried about the rock melon. It is just the corn I'm worried about, but with that ground cover it will help retain some moisture, so I won't have to be watering it as often. Now the other thing I've put in here are some Sun King sunflowers. So last year I did put sunflowers in here, but I actually grew them and then I planted them in the starts. This year I've decided that with the sunflowers, they do better if you just throw the seeds around the yard and let them grow themselves. These here are sunflowers. These are volunteer sunflowers. They are doing really awesome. So I've decided that is just how all my sunflowers are being done this year. Those are the three things I've put in. Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you, the corn I put in there this year is different to what I normally put in here. I normally do a different sweet corn, but I had a heap of varieties that I bought last year that I haven't used, so I went, I need to get these seeds used up. So today it is a sweet corn. It's a Keldon Glory F1. So that's the variety that I've got put in here today of the corn. Now I haven't grown this variety of corn, so I don't know how well it's going to go. I do have my favorite corn so far out of all the varieties I've tried, but like I said, I'm going to try these and then I'm going to go back to the corn that I normally like to use here, that I know grows really well. So once the corn is fully planted in and you've got it all covered up and you've watered in well, it is very vital, guys, that for the first couple of months of growing corn that you are watering it and making sure that the ground stays moist. Corn needs a lot of moisture and a lot of fertilizer as well, so make sure that you are watering it, especially if it's really hot. You're watering it every day for 20 minutes to half an hour. If once the corn has grown and you haven't already put a slow release fertilizer down, I usually use a dynamic lifter. Spread a heap of that around so it has more food coming and is ready for it as it grows. Now as you can see, the corn are getting quite tall. They're probably about 40 centimeters tall now, and they are looking absolutely beautiful. It is very easy to put 300 corn seeds into a area that is about 4 by 2 meters. Yes, right guys, I said 300 corn. So you can see that the far end down there, the corn down there is really quite thick and plump. I'll show you a quick close-up on that one. But down this end, the corn here seems to be a little more straggly, not quite as tall. It's probably hard for you guys to see, but you see this row here, they are nowhere near as thick and juicy looking as the other end. Now, I'm pretty sure that this is due to not getting as much water as the rest of the garden, because this whole area here didn't have the retic that's posting out here. This is a new addition I've just put in, and I'm pretty sure that because this area wasn't getting as much water as the other end, these guys are not doing as well as this end. So as you can see, these are really quite plump, really quite looking really good. And you see the sunflowers that I've put in here, there's several that are growing through here. They are doing really nicely, growing up now. You can also see underneath those are the melons that I put in as well, and they will cover up the area in here as well, all the ground. But they are doing really well. So this end of the bed, yeah, these are about 40 to 50 centimeters tall now. Some of them are a little taller than others. And this end is a lot smaller, and I would say that that is due to not getting as much water as this end. So I've rectified that now by putting in an extra retic over the side there. And hopefully they will plump up and become a lot more nicer as well. So what makes me think that the corn is lacking water, guys, and it's not something else? Well, one, they're not going yellow. So usually yellowing of most plants is an indication that they are lacking in nutrients. So you would throw some type of fertilizer through. The other would be they are growing, but they are growing very slowly. And they're not as big as the other end. So I know that it's not a sun issue, because this specific part of the garden, which is behind me here, so this is corn patch here through to here. The sun, it rises behind me and it sets in front of me. So I know that it's not a sun issue, so they are in full sunlight, exactly the same amount of sun. This is the other side of the garden bed that I'm facing towards, and the only tree here that would shade out is the mandarin tree, but it is not close enough. It's about 10 meters or so away, and it is not big enough to shade this specific part of the garden. The apricot tree, which is on this side, is big enough to shade the garden, but because of the way the sun runs, which is this direction, it is not going to shade the tree. So I know it's not a sun issue. I've taken a look at that. So it's not a fertilizing issue, though I do need to fertilize them. It's not a sun issue. It's not a vermin issue, because nothing is being eaten. They are looking healthy. They are just smaller than the rest of it. So the only other option it could be is it's getting water. It's just not getting enough water to grow bigger and healthier and stronger as the other end of the garden is. So I will probably come down and do a bit of hand watering, give them some extra water in there, and hopefully then they will pick up and become as strong and healthy as the other end of the garden. So but yeah, so that is the basics of how I decide what is causing the problem with the plant. So it's the basics of going through and seeing what a plant requires. A plant requires nutrients, moisture, and sun. So you'll take a look at those three specific items, and then there is always the bug side of things. Is there something eating them? But it's very obvious when there's a bug infestation in your specific part of the garden. So and just eliminating which ones are those that it could be. If there's no yellowing, it's definitely not a nutrition issue. If it's one part of the garden bed that's happening to, or if it's all of the garden bed it's happening to, it can then either be the sun or the watering issue. And so take a look at the way the sun falls on it. If everything's getting the same amount of sun, then it's obviously a problem with the reticulation system that you've got set in. So give that a look at and give that specific part of the bed a bit more water than the rest of it. So just eliminate what is wrong, what's happening. Take a look at it. You always know when your kids aren't feeling well, you know what's wrong with them. You always figure that out because you are their mum or their parent. And you can figure that out because you know them. It's the same when you're doing your veggie gardens, guys. Look at them and have a look and see and eliminate are they getting enough of, are they not getting enough of, and just go from there. And if you're not sure what it is, adjust all of them. Add some more water, add some more fertilizer, and if you can, trim a tree down to give them some more sun. Do whatever it is you need to do. It's time for the corn to get harvested. So the corn has all died off on the top here, all died back. It hasn't gone all the way in to the bottom of the corn, but once this stuff has died back, the corn is ready. The other way to tell is just to break open a small section of your corn. Take a look at the corn. This is looking super nice and yellow. Stick your thumbnail in, and when you get some really nice like cream-like substance come out, your corn is ready to be picked. I also know this is ready to be picked because I taste tested one a couple of days ago and it was beautiful. Now if you do this and it's not ready, it's not a milky color, just cover it back up and leave it a little bit longer. But my corn is ready, so I'm going to go through and pick out what is ready and leave what is not ready, and see what we get out of there today. So the other way to tell if these guys are ready is to just grab the corn, pull it away from the stalk, and if it is really easy to pull out, then the corn is definitely ready. So I just want to show you guys how I harvest these. Now you can see that there is a bit of a stem left here. Basically I just cut off all the ones that I'm going to cut off. I'll cut off the stems, leave the bottom of the stem in here. Now if you're able to leave this in here over winter, it will help keep your soil staying still. So it'll provide some food for your worms over the winter. And so I just leave them in there, and by the time the next season comes around, if you're not using this garden bed for something else, they are pretty easy to pull out. At this stage they have a really big root system on them and they can be quite difficult to pull out. All the top bits will go into the compost. I'll cut them down a little bit more and put them into compost. The other thing I can do with these is feed them to Elvis because he really does like the corn tops. What are you doing? You're eating all the corn plants that are supposed to be for compost. Can't leave anything laying around, can I? Buffet? Is it? You're starving. Yes, you look like you're starving, don't you? Couple of other things I want to cover before I finish this video off for you guys, and I hope that it's been interesting for you, is see how there's pieces of corn missing in here. This is not something that you've done, it's to do with the plant. Basically all these little bits here, if they don't get pollinated, or the strings here, then you aren't going to get corn in the spot where that string hits. So this is all just due to the pollination of the plant. If you get a lot of wind, then the pollination will be better. You can do hand pollinating yourself. Shake the plant, grab them off the stalks and rub them on the top of the corn when they're young. I just usually let the wind do the job. So that is all that is. It's just started raining, so I've just moved up into the preserving kitchen. But you can see on this corn here how the corn is growing outside of its husk, its cover. That is also not something you guys have done either. That is just the plant. I quite often have them, especially the littler ones, do this as well. So this is another one. This one is really quite growing outside of its casing. Same thing again, it is still edible. It's just that it's gotten too big for its spot that was in, and it's just growing outside of it. Alright, so this year's harvest, I've hit and miss. The particular variety that I've used I'm not happy with, I won't use again. So I've had corn from a decent size right down to tiny little things here. These tiny little ones, they will still get used. So this is the big one. It is a really good looking corn. I only got a couple of these really nice looking ones. A lot of them are this size. The top is just the same thing as before. That's just not gotten pollinated. You just cut them off of there and eat them. This is another really good example of a lot of it not getting pollinated. Now last year, anything I got like this, I took the corn off with a knife and I put it in the dehydrator and did dehydrated corn with it. This one is slightly not quite ripe, but it's still very edible as well. But these little teeny tiny ones make great little morsels on a plate, and they will still get eaten. So my harvest so far is not very big, and from what I'm seeing out there, I'm not probably going to get a lot more corn out of there, but we'll get a couple of meals out of the corn this year. Like I said, I'm not happy with the variety that I've used, so I will be going back to the variety that I have had success with before. Alright guys, thank you for joining me here again in the garden. Don't forget there's going to be some videos here for you to check out, and the subscribe button up there if you haven't already. It really helps also if you stick a thumbs up for my channel, and for us as a community to share all our knowledge. Don't forget to write stuff down the bottom. Share your goods and bads about your corn crop, whether you've got them in yet or not, and we will see you guys when we see you in the garden, the kitchen, or maybe in the pantry.